Hi everyone, happy Brigid's Day. It's the first day of spring in the Celtic calendar and we all need something to hope for. So hopefully you're getting some spring-likeness into your life. I wrote something about Brigid, the goddess. I wrote something about her for London Irish Centre a couple of years ago. So I thought I would read that for you today. We're here to celebrate Brigid, Ireland's real patron. After all, what did St. Patrick do? Wah, holy hot takes, throw a parade, he banished some snakes. Except he didn't. There were no snakes. Now, I'm not saying he's a sham, but waving a sham rock around isn't all that. They aren't even that heavy. And then there's Brigid. Not a saint, no. They made her a Christian saint later and she became so mainstream that her cross became the emblem for the national broadcaster. Remember that? But Brigid was so much more than just a holy logo. She was a Celtic goddess. She brought spring. She was a swordsmith, not too shabby at wielding one herself, the goddess of fire and fertility and healing with power over pregnancy, conception and labour, goddess of poetry and light, of beer, of all society, all classes, goddess of multitasking really. Forget Patrick, we should be throwing parades for her. Keep your shamrocks, lad, we're making swords. When I think of Ireland, with its poets and warriors and beers, it's Brigid that I think of. There is a legend that Brigid once gave away all her family's milk, butter and cheese to the hungry, but the very next day, the dairy was magically full again. It may not have been water into wine, ale was more her style, but making butter magically multiply surely deserves a parade at the least. The dairy connection is apt, because my second image of Ireland after Brigid is of course rich, creamy butter. Cattle grazing in lush Kerry fields, silver churns, glistening golden packages, yellow, salty, lucrative. If all Ireland's exported butter were laid end to end, it would go 3 times round the world. That's a fact. Did Brigid have a hand in that? Science can't say, but I think we know the truth. How did we, the Irish, historical underdogs, get to rule the world in such a delicious, spreadable way? If not a conquering of the world, at least a covering of toast. Now, I'm no historian, but I, like every other person who used to go to the pub, am an expert. And only part of the ensuing history I'm about to share is makey-uppy. Here's my hypothesis. You can link every significant Irish historical event back to Brigid or butter, or both. Allow me to demonstrate. First, who are the Irish? Are we the Firbolgs, Celts, Gaels, Normans, Vikings, newly arrived from Romania or Malawi? For Christmas, I did my DNA test, a bit of scientific cred for this hypothesis. Now, do I wish I'd known about the plan to make DNA sex clones or whatever before I sent my spit off in the post? Yes, madam, I do, but it's too late for that now. The results say I am mostly Irish, whatever that is, like 90%. I'm also from Cornwall, a little bit. Now, you can't make pasties without butter. Before that, French, croissants, butter, and long before that, Armenian. Armenian cuisine cooks mainly with butter, not oil. Wrap me in gold tinfoil and call me Kerrygold. Jeans, like hips, don't lie. So I am mostly butter. Sorry, Irish. Now, traditional Irish family trees go something like this. Farmer, 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 teacher, farmer, 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 secret priest, farmer, farmer, farmer. But we're not mushrooms who sprung up on the island overnight. We all come from somewhere. We're all mixed. We're chatty with patter smooth and golden and things happen. You know what I mean? The rest is butter, baby. The people who lived on the island of Ireland in prehistoric times were all pagans and not in the new nationalism-y kind of a way. We were happy hunting and gathering and worshipping the rarely seen sun. Which is why Brigid's feast, in bulk, was so important. It meant we weren't dead yet, hooray! We lived in ring forts with roofs as low as our life expectancy. Life was hard, but we hadn't even heard of vulture funds yet, so things were not so bad. Obsessed with the afterlife, we built megalithic tombs like Newgrange that survive to this day and will stand when we're gone. Apparently, an earlier structure made of butter melted once on the summer solstice. But good goddess, we used to love a funeral. Our ancestors built passage graves and decorated them, like your ma painting the front room if the priest was coming. There are no records of how many sandwiches were served or what butter was used, probably goat's or sheep's butter. But as a people, we didn't yet have the self-esteem necessary to approach a cow. The Celts arrived around the 6th century BC and we started speaking Irish. It's not clear whether they brought the language with them or we invented it to talk behind their backs. All we know is that before that we communicated only through music and crying, much like today. The Celts loved the idea of Brigid because they had goddesses just like her. Then we invented written language. Other cultures may have had sunshine, but we were able to write about how much we missed it. Ireland's legends were set down about this time, so Brigid became immortalised as well as immortal. Our prehistoric ancestors had great skin. We know because you can see it in the National Museum, well, when it opens up again. Bog bodies are bodies preserved in cold pressed peat. And what else was preserved in bogs? Butter. That's right. There's prehistoric butter in the National Museum. Now, I wouldn't eat it at this stage. They don't serve it in the cafe but it is there. Beach bodies. They were for summer magazines or Love Island. Bog bodies are forever. Now, it wasn't all glam. Our grain diet and lack of dentistry meant most adults were toothless till 2005 or thereabouts, when whitening studios overtook post offices in our culture. Our pre-Christian forebears were clearly preserving butter, but not consuming enough of it. Calcium, lads, calcium. The years fly by. The Romans land in Britain, but they won't touch Ireland with a barge pole. They called us Hibernia, the land of eternal winter. And the Irish were known as barbarians, some kind of barbarians, rude. No butter for you, Palladius. Rude. By now, butter was deemed a low food, and the Romans, being fierce snobs, wouldn't eat it, which was probably why in Ireland cappuccinos and pizza were deemed not to exist till at least the late 1970s. We wouldn't give them the satisfaction. Nice cloaks, though, Romans. Now, St. Patrick introduces Christianity, all by himself, with no help, despite there being no internet and no roads. Although Brigid was there long before him as a goddess, his mansplaining seems to have hit the press. The monks were only mad for documenting other lads, and snakes were easy to draw. This favouring of Patrick was probably one of the earliest occurrences of kind of biased propaganda now known as snake news. In what some say was karma, the monasteries were soon attacked by Vikings and dwindled as a result. The Vikings founded Ireland's first major towns and cities and introduced the concept of money, boo, and shopping, yay! They were the first people to export butter, so we obviously got the idea from them. They settled down and bred with the locals, but some of this was not consensual. The high kicks in Irish dancing, that's not joyous, that's rhythmic self-defence. Ein, do, trí, car, cuig, sé, seacht, kick a Viking in the nuts. Now came the Normans, the English in disguise. They invade in 1169, beginning 800 years of mild strain and gentle tension and friendly rivalry between the two islands. The Normans gave us notions about ourselves, like better farming systems, teaching us English and French, and having the confidence to eat beef. This must have been the start of cow butter too, a game changer for commerce, dental health, and ideas above our station. Nothing happens for ages then until Brigid's beer business takes a temporary hit with the invention of whiskey in the 1300s. There's much rejoicing and many sore heads. Hangover fry-ups are not recorded, but it's a mean scrambled egg without butter. These all tie in, I promise you, it's scientific. Early modern times. Granuaile is a warrior queen in the Brigid mode, a trendsetter, an influencer, a badass, fierce for the pirating. She met with Queen Elizabeth I in London, conversing with her in Latin, sicut dominus. Like a boss. I don't know, it's probably Latin. That's what I found on Wikipedia or wherever anyway. The 1600s end the era of the Gaelic lords, but everyone is distracted by the arrival of something amazing. Potatoes. It's very exciting, and suddenly there's something other than brown bread to butter. Boyle's Law is discovered by an Irishman. We misinterpret it to mean boiling should be the sole cooking method for spuds, but slathered in butter, nobody minds. The spuds were slathered, actually, not the people, or maybe the people. I mean, that's their business if they're into that. It has no place in a serious history like this, though. Very serious. Not all is smooth and spreadable, though. Relations between Ireland and Britain worsen when Cromwell invents Catholic versus Protestants. This sticks and is very successful and sadly goes on for ages. Modern Irish history is therefore plagued with all the rebellions, bloodshed and disease and displacement. Brigid's swordsmithing flourished, though she wasn't very happy about it. Then there was the Great Famine, which was not great at all. In good news, the steam turbine was invented in Ireland, and the concept of boycotting, surely a legacy of Brigid's power of fighting and fire. But people were too hungry to care. In 1916, an armed rebellion proclaimed Ireland's independence. This was handy, as it gave us names for all the new train stations that had opened since the steam turbine news. Without a stage, Pearse stood on a slab of butter to read the proclamation. It's true. There followed the new Irish state, Michael Collins' Anglo-Irish Treaty, partition, Second World War, known as the Emergency, and we're nearly up to date in the Republic. Brigid had to avert her eyes because now Ireland draped itself in a cloak of shame. No foreign power to blame this time, just us. Comely, compliant maidens are written into law. It's butter for the lads and lads only. If a dollop landed on their shirt, there were now Magdalen laundries full of fallen women to get them whiter than white. Some say Brigid was born a slave. Well, we had no shortage of them. An Irishman invents the ejector seat, surely lubricated with some kind of yellow grease, but we still couldn't get the women out. In 1950, we invented crisps. There was relative peace, as protests couldn't be heard over the enthusiastic crunching. The 70s, and women have had enough. They board a contraceptive train to Northern Ireland at the full height of the Troubles, and back in Dublin, they order pints instead of the halves. That was all we were allowed. The goddess of beer didn't do things by halves. Around this time, cool people, Germans mainly, who came to Ireland to make goat's cheese and have open relationships, well, we didn't tell them we'd had goat's cheese for years. They believe they've invented gourmet cuisine and we let them take the credit. 1983, the church ring fences women's wombs. The goddess of midwifery breaks her sword in sorrow and frustration. Then, the 1990s, a kind of spring, seeds of freedom, contraception finally, divorce finally, the last laundry closes only now. The Good Friday Agreement cements peace, and for a while the greatest conflict between North and South is whether you put butter on a scone or a scone. It's scone, by the way. A new millennium. Planes don't fall out of the sky, but the Celtic tiger stalks the land. We lose the run of ourselves, like clarified butter, and crash and burn. Austerity. But then we find our own claws and teeth. We take to the streets. We repeal the Eighth Amendment so our wombs can run free as a prehistoric goat. Our sisters in Northern Ireland are next. We start to reckon with the shame of our past, and we stand with survivors seeking justice and truth. There's a lot left to fight, but now we're free to fight it. And with Brigid's powers of healing and butter on top, surely nothing can curdle our ambitions. And with that, I and my dog trying to break in, there he is. I think I have proved in a very scientific and not at all tenuous way, quiet, how Brigid and butter have shaped Ireland. Happy Brigid's Day. Have a great spring. The sunshine is coming. Take care. I better let the dog in. Bye.